It's time for the latest edition of What's the Word, the radio broadcast that brings you news of our Area 1 community. I'm Army Staff Sergeant Crystal Crawford, and now here's the host of What's the Word, Mr. Frank Fisher of the USAG Red Cloud and Area 1 Public Affairs Office.
Thanks, Sergeant Crawford. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of What's the Word. If you're a member of our Area 1 community, you probably know that Area 1 has a new senior enlisted leader. He is Command Sergeant Major Michael L. Berry, and he is our guest on this edition of What's the Word. Sergeant Major Berry assumed his duties with the garrison last month. We'll be talking with him in just a few minutes. And it's fair to say that he is the perfect person to listen to for seasoned, time-tested insight on good soldiering and good leadership. He'll be talking with us about several things today, about how to be the best soldier you can be, also about good leadership. And that'll be helpful to you whether you're an NCO, a junior officer, or a civilian with supervisory responsibilities. We'll also hear from him about the approach he'll be taking to his duties here over the next 2 years as the Area 1 Command Sergeant Major. First, though, I want to give you a quick snapshot of Sergeant Major Berry's background. He's an infantryman and a veteran leader of soldiers. He was born in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. He joined the Army 23 years ago in 1992. His father, by the way, was also a career NCO who served more than 30 years in the Army, including a number of tours in Vietnam. Sergeant Major Berry himself has served 3 rotations in Afghanistan. He's authorized to wear the coveted Combat Infantryman badge. Besides being an infantryman, though, he's also a paratrooper. In fact, he's what's known in the airborne as a Master Blaster, which is to say he has earned the Master Parachutist badge. That's the most advanced of the 3 airborne badges that a paratrooper can earn. He's also a jump master, a pathfinder, a ranger. He's been a ranger instructor, a master fitness trainer, and he's been, oh yes, wait for it, a drill sergeant. He's held a wide variety of leadership positions. They include squad leader, long-range surveillance team leader, platoon sergeant, first sergeant, operations sergeant major. And he's been a battalion sergeant major before coming to Area 1 as a garrison command sergeant major. Sergeant Major Berry holds a bachelor's degree in multidisciplinary studies and associate degrees, one in applied science, the other in business administration management. Sergeant Major Berry, welcome to today's edition of What's the Word. For those listeners who may not know, Sergeant Major, what is the role, what is the role of the Area 1 Command Sergeant Major?
In short, well, first of all, thank you for having me. In short, the Area 1 Garrison Sergeant Major is a senior enlisted advisor to the Garrison Commander, which helps the mission commander with infrastructure on the post, safety of the soldiers, where they live, where they eat, things of that nature. We provide services to all the soldiers so they can go out and protect the American people and do what they need to do around the world.
So it sounds to me as though you're very much the person who has the kind of ultimate responsibility and concern with just about everything that affects the soldiers' lives, not only their living situation, but their working situation and their professional development, or is that not necessarily the case?
In so many ways you can look at it in that aspect. A lot of soldiers, even myself before getting here, didn't realize the touch points that I have, and the responsibility is a great one, but I welcome the challenge, and I'm really excited about it.
We have about a minute and a half before the break, and I'm just curious, the fact that you've been a drill sergeant, and by the way, if I recall correctly, your father was a drill sergeant also, wasn't he?
Yes, sir.
Right.
He was.
Do you think that gives you something that you bring to your role that you might not otherwise have had you not had that experience?
I think being fortunate enough to serve as a drill sergeant has helped me just understand personalities, different people, and how people think. And sometimes you can agree to disagree and come to the same objective. And at the end, you say, hey, we actually were talking about the same thing. And I acknowledge that, just seeing different soldiers all over, coming from all over the continent, all over the United States. And I understand that as a drill sergeant. So it's about team building.
Do most soldiers seem to recognize the drill sergeant patch that you have on your uniform? Does that register with them right away?
No, I think it's just my personality. They don't really see me as a drill sergeant when they first
I see. Well, thank you. We'll be hearing much more from the Sergeant Major when we're back from the break. Here's Sergeant Crawford.
Yes, English singer-songwriter James Bay with Let It Go right here on AFNKC The Eagle. We're back with What's the Word Hour, and here's Frank Fisher.
Thank you, Sergeant Crawford. Hello again, and today on What's the Word, we're getting acquainted with the new Area 1 Senior Enlisted Leader, Command Sergeant Major Michael L. Berry. Sergeant Major Berry, we'll talk about leadership in a moment, but before that, knowing that we have many junior enlisted soldiers here in Area 1, what would you say to them about how to be the best soldier they can be?
Well, it's just several rules that I would tell a junior soldier to follow. One is be where you need to be. Two is know your job. Three, if you don't know, ask somebody. And four, just continue to strive to be physically fit and work on your discipline. Just be disciplined. Those things right there are the pillars of being a good soldier.
When you and I spoke last week, you had much to say about how critical, how central discipline is. Would you elaborate on that for us? Tell us a little bit about that.
Discipline to me is the lifeblood of leadership and the lifeblood of any good organization. So as a disciplined soldier, no one have to tell you to, do more push-ups. No one have to tell you to look at yourself in the mirror when you put your uniform on. Even as a kid, no one has to tell you to make your bed up. Not saying that discipline being RoboCop or anything like that, but discipline is the lifeblood of a good soldier. And it'll make you follow directions to a T. And if you don't know, it'll make you ask somebody. And it's just to me, it's just one of those things. If it's pumping in your heart, then you will be very successful if you're disciplined.
And let's say there's a young soldier who may think that he or she needs more discipline. They may honestly look at themselves and say, gee, I know the Sergeant Major's right, and I want to have that kind of discipline, but I'm not sure how to do it. If they were to say that to you or to another, let's say another NCO, what do you think would be a good answer for them that would help them?
First, I would say a lot of us don't see the potential that other people see in ourselves, and I am definitely a product of that. There are a lot of things that I've done in the military that I didn't think I would be able to accomplish, but leaders seen potential in myself that I didn't see. So as a soldier who says, well, I'm having problems with discipline, I think first is just acknowledge your shortcomings, be honest with yourself, and you can go forward. We tend to have problems with looking ourselves in the mirror and being honest with ourselves. And that's probably the first thing you need to do. Understand your shortcoming and knowing you got to work on it. But when you come up with excuses, those things will allow you not to be disciplined. It will give you an excuse why you did not put your uniform on correctly, or why you were late. You have an excuse for that. But discipline will cause you to leave home early so you get to work on time. And really, it's just know your shortcomings.
In your experience, does there seem to be at least an element of habit formation in developing self-discipline? Do you think it's partly a matter of doing it right and then doing it right again and again, or not necessarily?
Well, repetition. We typically American soldiers learn through repetition. We grow through experience, but we learn through repetition. So those things we continue to do very well and become very proficient at it. That's how we instill discipline on ourselves. We don't miss steps. But then, as we do exercises that's provides scenario based, that's how we grow. That's how we grow experience, and that's how we grow as soldiers and as leaders. And that's what defines you as leaders and as a soldier. And you can see which way and kind of the direction you want to do in the military. And that MOS may not be right for you. You say, well, I'm looking at this now because now you found focus.
For those who are NCOs, and we have just about a minute left in this segment, and we'll have more time in the course of the broadcast, but for those who are NCOs, what advice do you have for them about exercising good leadership?
Be very competent in what you do day to day. Know your job, and understand that you will move on, so you need to make your subordinates better than you. Always come in the duty day with a plan to make your subordinate better than you. And if you can leave that stamp on a formation, then you will be very successful.
That puts it very straightforwardly, very clearly, make your subordinates better than you. And I believe you told me when we talked last week that that's something that you advise NCOs when you're mentoring them and so forth. Am I correct?
Absolutely. I tell them that, I look at myself and I don't want anybody to think that anybody can be better than them. So I tell my soldiers, hey, I don't want you like me. I want you better than me or better than I ever can be. And if I can get anywhere close to that and get that in their head that you're better than me. I'm just here to train you, but you're better than me. I feel that, I think I've left the unit a little bit better. And two, I've given them tools that I've had to go away and be successful.
Well, thank you. We'll hear more after the break.
And I'll be right back with your weather, exchange rate, and gas prices. We're back with What's the Word Hour, and here's Frank Fisher.
Thanks, Sergeant Crawford. We're talking today with the new Area 1 Senior Enlisted Leader, Command Sergeant Major Michael L. Berry. He's talking with us mainly about leadership in general. Now we'll hear about how he himself approaches leadership. Sergeant Major Berry, how would you sum up your leadership philosophy or approach?
Mr. Fisher, I really look at leadership myself as just take care of soldiers and they'll take care of you. And if I may elaborate a little bit on that.
Please.
I look at it, none of my success was based off of me. It was based off of the success and the hard work of the soldiers and the leaders. And knowing that, I continue to strive to be a better leader for them, a better follower for my leaders. And in the end, I think leadership is just taking care of soldiers, and then you turn around and they take care of you. Sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you're asked to give a lot more of yourself than at the time you want to give. But across the gambit, from senior leaders to junior leaders, it's about taking care of soldiers, and it's about the people. All the technical equipment we have means nothing unless the soldiers train to use that equipment proficient, and they're competent and confident in what they do. And I look at it same thing as platoon sergeants and platoon leaders. It's what I call a marriage sometime that's not always favorable, but both of those, your successes makes that platoon very, very competent and confident, and as they get ready to prepare for combat or a good training event. And the soldiers see that. The soldiers really see that, and they really feed off of that.
You used a phrase that we hear a lot here in the garrison, in Area 1, and, well, throughout the Army, really, and that is the phrase, take care of soldiers, taking care of soldiers. When we spoke last week, you used the phrase, mission first, people always. For people who may not know what the Army means specifically by the phrase, take care of soldiers, Would you elaborate on that a little more? You mentioned a few things like training and so forth, but just for anybody who's new to that phrase, what are we talking about?
I guess a draconian way of thinking about it is me personally, really try to stay away from the word I. I really like to use we, because a failure is just not one person in the military, because it's a team effort. Now, you could say one person may have failed to bring a piece of equipment or put batteries in it or something like that, but that turns into the team coming up with shortcomings. So when you can say we and stay away from the word I, you really look at things and you own the shortcoming, or you own your success. But when you own that, you own it as a group, not just as an individual, as a group. So I would encourage leaders to be cognizant when they talk to their subordinates by not saying, well, I will do this for you, or I did that, or I was successful in this. I would use the word we, because anything you are successful at or fail to do, it's we did it together.
We have about almost a minute and a half left in this segment, and if you think that there's enough time, I think it would be great if you would tell the story, briefly obviously, though it would have to be, about the NCO, the platoon sergeant who helped you when you were looking at Ranger School. I think that's a very inspiring example of leadership.
Well, when I came in the Army, and I knew there was a couple things. I always knew I wanted to be an airborne ranger. I know I wanted to be in the airborne community and do some really high-speed things. I had a platoon sergeant that just did not let me give up on myself. I could swim, but everything that's fun out in the outside world isn't too fun in the military. Jumping out of airplanes is pretty cool when you see it on TV, but when they strap 80 pounds of equipment on you, that's a little different. Swimming in the ocean is pretty fun, but when they add 60-something pounds of equipment, it's a little different. So jumping into a pool to do the swim test, I failed, and I'm not afraid to say I failed. I own that shortcoming. But at the time, Sergeant First Class Samuel Costin, I'll never forget him, said, nope, we're going to go. And we're going to go to this pool, and we're going to learn how to swim. We're going to learn how to swim with BDUs at the time, boots, a weapon, and your equipment. And you're going to be successful. So he personally he's seen the potential in me that I didn't see in myself, because he took personal time every day for almost 2 months. At 1600, we were heading to the pool. And that kind of resonated, because as I was going to the pool, even the soldiers that really could swim would go with me to encourage. And there were things that I could do, like really run, do push-ups, pull-ups, that I helped them with. And I wound up starting a culture in the unit I was in that, hey, just because you can't do one thing that's required of you in Ranger School to get in, doesn't mean you can't go. So I went, I was successful, graduated, and then other soldiers followed me. And I'm happy to have been an example, but I wouldn't never be in this position if he didn't see the potential in me and say, hey, you're disciplined, you want this, and I see you, what you don't see today, I'm looking in the future and see this person in the future.
That's a fantastic example of leadership. Thank you. We'll be back after the break.
We're back with What's the Word? And here's Frank Fisher.
Thanks, Sergeant Crawford. Hello again. And if you're just joining us, we're talking with Command Sergeant Major Michael L. Berry, Senior Enlisted Leader with U.S. Army Garrison Red Cloud and Area 1. Sergeant Major Berry, what do you want members of the Area 1 community to know about how you're approaching your role as the Area 1 Command Sergeant Major?
Oh, well, I will tell you, Mr. Fisher, that my predecessor, Command Sergeant Major Quirk, did a phenomenal job. The Area 1 boss, the Area 1 community is an awesome place with a lot of accolades across the Pacific region. I just want to continue to build a family, build a team, and continue to strive within the camps, KC, Red Cloud, Stanley, Boniface, and all those areas in Area 1, and just let them know I'm here to support. Soldiers, if you see me in passing, or leaders, please stop me and let's have a conversation. It doesn't necessarily have to be about barracks, defects, or commissary or anything like that. It's just tell me how the day's going and how you're doing, and if you have aspirations or something that I can help you out with. I think that's a good, healthy conversation I really like to have. I really like talking to soldiers as well as leaders, and because we grow from experiences, as I said before. And you can only do that by sharing those experiences, whether it's something that happened in civilian life or something that's happened actually in the military.
So people should not be put off by the fact that you do have that drill sergeant patch.
No, not at all. No.
And we had been talking, again, speaking of last week, of how big a difference there is in the way a sergeant major was perceived, let's say when your father was serving in the Army, and the way the perception is now. And I don't recall, were you saying that you thought that it was still pretty much the same perception and image, or that it had changed from then to now?
I think when people look at the position of the Command Sergeant Major, I think everybody looks at the roles and duties of the Command Sergeant Major as the same. However, I think that the Sergeant Majors have evolved over the years. The Academy, the Sergeant Major Academy, has changed so much over the years that's given us a lot more things in our toolbox to help soldiers out, that makes us a little bit more confident, that makes us more competent in the things we do on a day-to-day basis. However, not saying that the Sergeant Majors of the past was anything wrong with what they were doing, but I think now it's a lot of things that's changed, and they've asked a lot more from NCOs in general. It's not the same NCO of yesteryear that's here now. NCOs, that our education process is a lot more stringent, and we're asked to do things in combat that could actually change policy. A team leader or a squad leader could go out and things could go tremendous for them, or things could go horribly bad for them, and their decision-making process that they've learned in the Army of today helps keep things in place as commanders make decisions on the battlefield and in training and day-to-day operations. So I don't want to give the perception as what happened in years before wasn't as hard as now, because it's a different environment and a different set. But the goal again is taking care of soldiers, taking care of families, taking care of the community, and just being able to come to a safe home.
Well, Sergeant Major, we have roughly a minute left, and is there anything in that space of time that you'd like to re-emphasize or add to the conversation?
Well, I'd just like to thank you for having me, and the AFN crew to having me in and having this conversation. Again, I think that success is based off of discipline. Success in the military is based off of you guys and we building a team around ourselves. And again, if you see me on any of the camps, please stop me and we have a conversation. If you have time, get my number, get my email. My door is always open to soldiers that want to get mentored or just talk about things.
And if I recall correctly, you're also happy to have a civilian walk up and say hello?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that's good. Thanks very much for joining us, Sergeant Major. It was good that we could have you. I know that you had a very tight schedule, and we were looking at maybe you're not being able to make today, but appreciate that you made it happen.
Thank you.
Well, our thanks to today's guest, Command Sergeant Major Michael L. Berry, Senior Enlisted Leader with U.S. Army Garrison Red Cloud in Area 1. What's the Word airs every other Thursday at 3 p.m. here on AFN-KC. I'm Frank Fisher of the Area 1 Public Affairs Office. I've been your host for What's the Word, handing back now to my What's the Word broadcast partner, AFN-KC DJ, Army Staff Sergeant Crystal Crawford. Thanks very much. Here's Sergeant Crawford.
And as Mr. Fisher said, thanks for joining us for this edition of What's the Word, and I'll be right back with your weather, exchange rate, and gas prices.